Hi guys, Sean here from DigiDirect. Today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new camera that's just been announced, the Olympus EM1X. Now this is a new flagship camera for Olympus alongside the EM1 Mark II, so it's not replacing that camera. But the EM1X is all about the pro market. It's got a heavy emphasis on performance and features and specs and so on. They're really aiming at people who are perhaps used to using cameras like the Canon 1DX Mark II or the Nikon D5. Now luckily I've had some good hands-on time with the EM1X already. Olympus had a little trip about a week ago where we had the camera for 2 days. They took us to a bunch of different shooting experiences to test out the performance and so on. So I'm going to be sharing my takeaways from that as well as photo and video that I took with the camera over that period. We're also at the end going to have a short discussion with Michael Hearn, who's an Olympus professional commercial cinematographer and photographer who's been using the EM1X for a little while now. He's going to give us his perspectives. And lastly, I'll just say, of course, this trip was orchestrated by Olympus. That's not going to color my opinion of the camera one way or the other. Without any further ado, though, let's jump in and take a look at the Olympus EM1X. So the biggest thing that you'll notice right away is the integrated battery grip on this camera. So this is a grip that has slots for 2 batteries built right into the camera. It's not removable. This makes the camera substantially larger than most Micro Four Thirds cameras, which is another reason why it's really a pro camera. If you're coming from something like a Canon 1DX Mark II, this is much smaller and lighter than that. But if you're used to the kind of casual portability of most other Olympus Micro Four Thirds cameras, this is larger than that. The dual battery is useful though. I shot over 2,000 images over the 2-day period. I didn't have to recharge the batteries. I didn't go through both batteries. These are the same BLH1 batteries that the EM1 Mark II uses. They've also redesigned the grip here. It is a lot deeper and it's a lot more balanced for some of the longer lenses like the 40-150 or 300mm, which I use a lot with my time with the camera. It did balance a lot better. Portrait orientation is another benefit of the battery grip, and they've made a point here so that the button configuration is exactly the same whether you're holding it regularly or vertically, so it's a lot easier to switch between the two quickly. They've added an autofocus joystick, or rather 2, one for each orientation, that will let you quickly change your AF point or jump through menus and so on. There are 2 SD card slots, both of which are UHS 2 compatible, which is great for a pro level camera. Obviously we want that. And there's a new little locking mechanism for the SD card door. Of course, we have a fully articulating LCD touchscreen that's handy for shooting from different angles. There's a new viewfinder with 0.83 times magnification, 120 frames per second, and 0.005 seconds refresh rate. This looks fantastic. It's absolutely competitive with optical viewfinders or other high-end viewfinders from other brands. The camera is dust, splash, and freeze-proof. They've also made improvements to the dust reduction system on the sensor, which they've improved by 10%, so they say. They've also taken from their TG Tracker line, they've added a GPS, barometer, temperature sensor, and compass to this camera. All this info is going to be preserved in your EXIF data. And the camera even has a heat pipe to dissipate heat. It actually worked quite well. We were shooting about 40-degree temperatures over the 2 days there, and I didn't have any issues with overheating at all. The shutter is rated to 400,000 actuations. You can charge the camera via USB as well, including using certain mobile USB power packs. And if you're using USB charging, both batteries should charge in about 2 hours. We also have a number of customizable mode dial settings, as well as a new B setting, which gives you access to Bulb and Olympus's proprietary live time and live composite modes, which are really good long exposure modes. There's also a customizable My menu, which you can assign different settings to. And finally, just subjectively speaking, the build quality here is super high. It feels very, very solid, and I found that the button and the dial placement was all very sensible and easy to access. Overall, I found that the ergonomics of this camera were very good. Let's talk under the hood. Inside the camera is a 20.4 megapixel Micro Four Thirds sensor. So not a big difference there. That's a high resolution for a Micro Four Thirds camera, although it's obviously not as high as the 30 or 40 megapixels that we've seen on some full frame cameras recently. Now, some people can get turned off by that number. To be honest, 20 megapixels is pretty much all that you'll need in the vast majority of situations. There are select reasons why you might want 30 or 40 megapixels, but a lot of it is marketing. To put it in perspective, Canon's 1DX Mark II, which is their absolute top-of-the-line pro camera, also has a 20 megapixel sensor. So you should be fine with 20 megapixels. That shouldn't be a concern. They've also added dual image processors inside the EM1X. So this has 2 TruePic 8 image processors. The EM1 Mark II only has 1. So that's going to be the reason that accounts for a lot of the performance increases that we'll see in the EM1X over the EM1 Mark II. So let's look at image stabilization here, because that is something that Olympus is known for. The camera has 6.5 stops of in-body image stabilization. It's a new record, highest on the market. And in fact, when you combine it with their 12-100 lens, which actually has some IS built into the lens, you get a combined 7.5 stops of image stabilization. So at 7.5 stops, that's pretty ridiculous. You can walk around with the camera handheld, as I'm doing here, and it almost looks like you're on a gimbal. You really don't need to rig this camera up much, or rather at all, to get these nice smooth shots. It makes it super flexible for video work, which is fantastic. Of course, the image stabilization is not only beneficial for video, it's also very good for photos. It allows you to shoot at longer focal lengths handheld. So if you're shooting with their 40-150 or 300mm lens, it also is going to allow you to shoot at much lower shutter speeds handheld, which actually ties into a new feature that they've got in the EM1X, Live ND. So this simulates an ND filter on the camera between ND4 and ND32, so up to 5 stops. So here's some shots where I took handheld using the Live ND feature. I had no ND filter on the front of the camera. It's a bright sunny day, but using the ND, Live ND mode, I was able to shoot at about 1 second here to get that nice blurry look in the waterfall and some different water movements and so on. So that's a really cool feature. Unfortunately, so far it only works for photos, not for video. That would be killer if it worked for video. Maybe we'll see that in an update in the future, who knows. Now, autofocus performance is going to be a major feature on this camera, as it is aimed at pros who are primarily going to be using it to shoot sports or other movement-based subjects. And indeed, that was a big feature of the activity that Olympus took us on this trip. A lot of it was centered around on showcasing the AF performance. We shot some rally cars and a stunt plane. So the camera has a 121-point all-cross type phase detect autofocus system that covers 80% of the frame. Now you can make some customizations to that AF system. A new mode that they were touting in particular is the intelligent subject detection and tracking mode, which is primarily what we use to shoot the cars and the plane. Now I'll let you judge these photos by yourself, but I shot almost 2,000 photos of the cars and the plane alone. And I gotta say, there's about 10 photos that are out of focus. Like, this thing had an almost 100% hit rate. It was really, really fantastic. And these are some challenging conditions. You know, there's a lot of dust in the air with the cars moving straight at the camera. The plane was flying all over the place, super, super fast, close to the ground, and it just kept up with it. Even if it did lose the focus for a frame or two, within a frame or two, it had grabbed it back again. Which is impressive considering it can shoot it up to 18 frames per second with AF tracking, so that's a really quick reacquisition time. It can also shoot up to 60 frames per second if you've got the AF lock on. They also did have, you've got the Pro Capture mode on this camera, which was taken from the EM1 Mark II, which is if you're holding the camera, the shutter button down halfway, it's going to buffer shots continually, and when you do press the shutter button all the way down, it'll save the last second or so of shots, which is helpful if you don't know exactly when the action is going to occur. But yeah, overall, AF system on this camera was out of this world. I basically couldn't stump it. It was nearly flawless. Now, video-wise, the camera can shoot Cinema 4K at up to 30 frames per second, not 60. That would have been nice. But in 1080, you can shoot 120 frames per second. They have added a new log picture profile. They're calling it OM Log 400. It's a flat picture profile that's going to make it easier to color grade after the fact. It's not the flattest picture profile I've ever seen, but it gets the job done. I'll mention that the continuous autofocus for video was also fantastic here. I shot all of the video with continuous autofocus. It was basically set it and forget it. It was able to definitely deal with the subjects and you know, grab the right subject out of the frame. I didn't have any really focus hunting or anything. It was really, really right on, which is very handy. And as I've mentioned already, the image stabilization is a big boon for video. You know, being able to have smooth shots just completely handheld is really, really nice. Adds a ton of flexibility to the camera. Makes it a good option as a run and gun camera, or even as a B camera if you've got, you know, another main camera and you want to just do some handheld shots. Just a lot of flexibility from the image stabilization, which was fantastic. There's a few other features that I'll touch on briefly here. They do see a return of the high-res shot, which is where the camera takes a series of images, shifts the sensor slightly each time, and then blends it all together into a single high-res shot. On the EM1X, that's a 50-megapixel shot, and you can do it handheld. So if you do need to occasionally take some, you know, high-res, high-megapixel shots, you can use this feature to achieve that. They're going to update the Olympus Capture software to have Wi-Fi tethering, so if you're in a studio, you can tether wirelessly. And they're also going to be releasing a new FL700 flash, which is a wireless weatherproof flash to complement the EM1X. One thing I haven't touched on yet is price, which is not an inexpensive camera, but compared to the market that you're looking at, as I mentioned, Canon 1DX Mark II users are kind of who they're targeting here. And the 1DX Mark II is an $8,000 camera. So for that market, this is an inexpensive camera, considering the specs and the features and the performance that it outputs. Overall, I was very impressed with the Olympus EM1X. Now, its larger body size and higher price tag does keep it squarely in the realm of pros. It's not a casual camera, but for that market, it does a fantastic job. Feature and performance-wise, I cannot fault it. It literally hit everything that I wanted it to hit. It's got fantastic image quality, excellent autofocus performance, good video specs. The image stabilization is fantastic. Really, the whole gamut had it going on, definitely. Also being a Micro Four Thirds system, it is going to be smaller and more affordable than a comparably spec'd full-frame system. And I think the main consideration here is going to be, are pros ready to step from a full-frame system to a Micro Four Thirds system? That's going to be the big question. I've been shooting Micro Four Thirds for a number of years now. I would posit that it's not quite as big of a leap between systems as a lot of people might think. But if it's something that you're considering, I would recommend trying out the camera, seeing how that sensor size difference, what it means to you, because performance-wise, this camera is up to snuff. Now, I'll leave you here with a short interview that I did with Michael Huron, who is a professional commercial cinematographer and photographer who's been using the EM1X for a couple weeks now, perhaps a month or so, and let's see what his perspectives are. So Mick, what kind of, why don't you give us a bit of a background on this type of photographer you are, a cinematographer?
Yeah, so I shoot TV commercials and commercial content, but I'm also a motorsport photographer. So this camera covers a lot of bases for me.
We saw you doing some pretty crazy rally car stuff there.
Yeah, in the desert. So this camera's super rugged.
We got a little bit of a taste of that today, or yesterday ourselves, but you did it quite more in depth. How did you find the autofocus performance?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's got this new intelligent subject detection, so it can pick out a car and it'll track it no matter how you frame it. Even if you move off your focus point, it'll follow the car.
And then you do a lot of cinematography stuff as well, not just photography. And any aspects about the video that you found particularly handy?
Now we've got 120 frames a second. We've got log, which makes me happy.
Shooting log right now?
And we've got an extra. Well, now we've got 7.5 stops with the 12 to 100 stabilization. So just following people around and tracking subjects. You don't need a gimbal. You can get away without a gimbal.
I was testing that today actually with that lens as well. It looked like you were on a Ronin S or something like that.
And that's where it fits into my video work. I can cover off so much more content without getting stuff out of the truck.
So you find you're often shooting with it just handheld, you don't need...
I don't rig it. I think that's the point of having such a small camera. Is that you can keep it small. I can have one hanging off me. If I am using a cinema camera or something, I can still have a camera hanging off me. I can grab stuff, or grab content everywhere.
So you use this occasionally as a bit of a B cam as well?
But also when I'm traveling, when I'm shooting, if I'm shooting in the desert or I'm climbing a mountain or something crazy, I just use these. They're just tough. They're tough. They're solid.
It's the size is really important. Like I shoot Micro Four Thirds normally, so I'm already on the train. But I was reviewing a 70-200 the other day, and I put it on a Canon 5DS, and I was just walking around with that for a couple hours, and it was unreal.
You forget how.
That's right. I was used to shooting. This is a larger Micro Four Thirds camera than most, just with the integrated battery grip and so on. But still, considering what it can do,
it's barely bigger than the M1 Mark II with the grip. But it does help balance the longer lenses.
That's what I was going to say, so the 12-100 is great, but you've got some use with the 300mm and so on.
The teleconverter as well.
With the teleconverter, okay, so I haven't used that yet. How'd that go?
Amazing. I've shot handheld video at 840mm equivalent with this camera.
Really?
And track stuff with autofocus in video. The autofocus in the video that's pretty damn good too. So I hope you enjoyed that. The Olympus EM1X is available for pre-order on our website at www.digidirect.com.au. Once the camera is out, we'll also have it in store so you can come in and test it out for yourself if you'd like. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, Western Australia, which is just outside the Perth CBD. Thanks guys, take care.